The new launch market is crashing. Here's what you should be doing. Recently, this article popped out. It says new private home sales in Singapore dived nearly 60% year on year in July, and immediately gives off the feeling that the market is going to crash. But if you really go and read through the details of this article, right, you realize that versus June 2024, July actually made like a 2 to 3 times jump in terms of the number of transactions, which was only reported in the fine prints of this article. And why is that always the case? Because for a very simple reason, journalists are also trying to use it as a clickbait for people to click in to go and see the news. Also because of the percentage of audience they are hoping for the price to drop because they have not bought anything is always larger than the people who have already bought a property and hoping that the price will go up. Data has shown, right, 70% of Singaporeans actually live in a HDB versus slightly under 25% of Singaporeans actually stay in a private property. So means to say, when you create an article, if you want to appeal to the masses, you always want to say that the market is crashing. And hence I use it as an opening hook to test see whether this video will do better or not. And if you appreciate my honest sharing so far, do me a favor by liking this video because it's going to help me a great deal. So how this video is going to be done is, number one, we'll be going through the TLDR version of this article because it's so long and I'm very sure you're just lazy to read. I do it so that you don't have to. Secondly, I'll be sharing with you based on history. What has history taught us? Last but not least, I'm going to share with you using facts and figures what you should be doing as a buyer or a seller, especially if you are looking to really do something in the next coming months. Now, before we go into the TLDR version, by the way, some of you, if you follow my social media, you would know that I have been appointed as the Chief IC for the upcoming Woodlands South MRT station condo called the Norwood Grand. It's by CDL and it's just a 2-minute walk to the MRT station. So if you wish to find out a little bit more about the upcoming launch in Woodlands South, the last launch was 13 years ago. If you're interested, right, just drop me a DM or send me a WhatsApp. I'll be happy to share with you over Zoom or over a phone call. So what this article is talking about is saying that just 571 units, excluding executive condominiums, are sold as home buyers turn selective and cautious. And this is something very, very obvious because as the Chief IC for multiple new launch projects, I get to see every week, week in, week out, how many transactions are being done. And recently it's very scary because like usually my boss will send in the evening about 10 p.m. on Sunday, all the consolidation, all the whole Singapore units. And I think if I'm not wrong, 2 weeks ago, I saw one entire week only sell 32 units of new launches. But if today you look at the fine prints of this article alone, right? So what it's trying to say is that the total number of units transacted in July versus July 2023 actually went down by almost 60%. So as I'm reading, right, it made me curious to go and find July 2023, what happened that constitutes such a big jump in terms of the numbers versus this year. During that month, right, in August 15, it's just almost like the exact same day that this article was out. It says July new private home sales jumped 5-fold, but souring economy could stymie momentum in August. A lot of indication that the market will go down even though the transaction volumes are going up. So I'm looking at the article back then, right? Let me give you a quick one, which is in July 2023, there were a total of 5 new launches in the month of July alone, and the developers actually sold 1,400 over units. And let us see what are the projects out there. It was Lentor Hills, if I'm not wrong, 500 over units. Grand Hammond, 1,000 over units. Pine Tree Hill, if I'm not wrong, is about 300 or 400 over units, and the Mist is about 500. So all in all, there were more than 2,000 over units actually launched in the entire month of July 2023 alone, as compared to July 2024. Sora 400 over units, and then Cassia 200 over units. It was less than 30% of the number of units launched, and hence the reason why this year July itself actually saw the drop in the number of transactions. Why? For a very simple reason, because usually developers will not want to launch in the month of June. Therefore, July there will be a mad rush of developers trying to launch their product at this point in time. Now, coming back to the article over here, what's more important to read is actually which are the projects they were selling well and what was the reason why it was doing well. Is to really go and see what is the accepted pricing of different regions. For example, there's actually Cassia that was transacted $2,049 per square foot for a very simple reason. It's freehold in Flora Drive, not somewhere that I will always recommend people to go and buy. I think for the freehold status and the sheer fact that the quantum is lower, you still come with 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. I think the investors that are looking to enter the market at a quantum that they can afford will still want to go for it. It sold about 60%. Sora in Yuanqing, not that near MRT station, sold 103 units. Lake Garden Residences, 41 units. And what does this tell us? Did you realize realize that the top 3 selling projects are not near the MRT station. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But looking at the price itself, right, for the non-MRT station projects, they're already trading above 2,000 to 2,200 plus per square foot on average if I were to use the Lake Garden Residences as an example. One of the reasons why Lake Garden Residences was the top post-launch project, that means it's not during the launch day, it's transacted 41 units over 1 month alone. If you're an investor, most likely you would have agents sending you the information, but if you have not, right, maybe you need to work with an agent that will update you on promotions and discounts. If you don't have an agent yet that is updating you with the new launch and the discounts, right, this is my WhatsApp number, you know what to do. Now, before I go into point number 2, which is what history has taught us, the data show me that 77% of you are not subscribed to this channel. So can you please do me a favor, please subscribe to the channel so that we can continue to scale this channel. Thank you so much. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to track back at the July transactions for the last 11 years, all the way until 2013. Why 2013? If you're new to this channel, I always say that after 2013 and before 2013, there were very, very different markets because that was before the introduction of TDSR and as well as ABSD, whereby a lot of people are buying in as to make a quick buck. That means today you can buy today and sell tomorrow, or you can buy multiple landed properties or condos without incurring additional buyer's stamp duty, which in today's context, it was a different era whereby there's a lot more speculators, there's a lot more foreign buyers, they're buying in as an investment. Back then, foreigners can come in and buy a property without paying additional buyer's stamp duty. Today, for a foreigner to buy a private property in Singapore, you will immediately attract 60% additional buyer's stamp duty. And for Singaporeans buying their second property, you'll be attracting 20% ABSD, which is 你一买就输 20% 了啦. So it comes to a point whereby people will only want to buy one property under each name, which removes away a lot of artificial inflation or artificial demand from the investors itself. And TDSR also limits the amount of loan that one can get, especially as you age. So we'll be touching a bit more on that at the end of this video. All in all, after 2013, it was a non-speculative era versus 2013 and before, it was a speculative era. Number of transactions in July 2024 was 563 based on my system over here. 2023, it was 1344. 2022 was 782. 2021, it was 1493. 2020, 928. 2019, 958 transactions. 2018, 1483. 2017, 859 transactions. 2016, 1022 transactions. 2015, 1564. 2014, 465. And 2013, 694. So after you track back 10 years, right, you realize that one thing, actually has this ever happened before? Yes. After the TDSR was being introduced in 2013, right, you immediately saw the number of transactions drop in the month of July alone. And the preceding year, which is 2014, the number of transactions was 465. Early on, we mentioned this year, July, how many transactions? Well, there was only 500 over transaction. But if you look at 10 years ago in 2014, there was only 465 transactions. Before you get ahead of yourself to say that, oh wow, it's going to be a 10-year cycle, 10-year crash. I always want to say this thing. Usually when I look at buying properties, I would never want to use by month to make a decision because 1 month will not tell you anything unless you're trading in the financial markets. If you're talking about private property, it could just be a lull period due to June because of the lack of new launches happening for that month. It doesn't show you much. And if you look at a quarter on quarter, right, obviously quarter 3 2024 is not over yet. We're just like halfway done because the number of transactions will take like 2 weeks to review. That's why you see this article was posted on August 16, 2024. And even last year, right, the same article also popped out in August 15, 2023. So to get the real data of the entire quarter, how many transactions were done in Q3 2024, will most likely require you to wait until October 15, 2024. So let's take a look at quarter 2 instead because obviously quarter 2 has already been concluded. Quarter 2 2024, you saw a total of 703 transactions. Quarter 2 2023, there were a total of 2,000 transactions. And if you track back, right, quarter 2 is indeed a bad month in terms of developer sales. Actually, for me, on the ground doing sales, even though I just assisted one of my clients to buy a new launch property just last week, thank you for the support, you know who you are. You really see that the show flat is really quite empty. Partially also because of the ghost month season, there's really not a lot of traction in the new launch market. But if you look at quarter 2 2024, right, it's indeed quite a terrible quarter as compared to the previous history. I look back, right, the least number of transactions in Q2 across the number of years, right, if I'm not wrong, this is the year in the last 10-11 years after the non-speculative era. If you ask me for my own expertise, right, will quarter 3 be a better quarter? Unlikely. quickly. So why? Because in this coming month, there's only 8 ABT which is going to be launched in Bukit Timah, and this is a whole list of developments that will be launching in Q4 2024. If you wish to find out more about these upcoming launches, I'm just a WhatsApp away. All in all, what history tells us based on this article is that there's nothing much to panic about. But more importantly is if you look at a buyer's perspective, is the market going to crash? So let's take a look at what happened when the transaction volume dropped. If you look at similar occurrences like year 2015, Q1, there were only 970 transactions. There was another occurrence of Q4 2022, and you saw that there was only 654 transactions. What's more important is how did the pricing actually move after that, and some signs that the price will drop. If you look at the drop from Q1 2015 to Q3 2015, there was a drop. And if you look at Q4 2022 all the way until this day, right, you also see a drop in terms of the median pricing, the average PSF of the properties across the board. So what should you be doing as a buyer and a seller using this information? I always fall back on my 3 golden principles, which is number 1, start saving and start investing as early as you can. Secondly, constantly increase your asset net worth by upgrading as soon as you can. Last but not least, always try your best to have a 20% buffer for rainy days. So as a seller, it's very straightforward. What is your next plan when you are selling? Do you intend to sell and then upgrade to a new launch? If yes, it's still a seller's market whereby sellers are still asking for above the last transacted pricing. We're still setting record high pricing. However, in the new launch market at this point in time, if you have a temporary place to stay, I would advise that you take the more delayed gratification approach to sell away your current resale property that has made a huge chunk of profit due to COVID. And earlier on, if you look at the longer term, right, this is the chart ever since 1995 where transaction data was being recorded and being publicized. Every time there's a new high, you may see a slight correction over here, but in the longer term, right, the new high is always still higher than the last high, and the new low will always still be higher than the last low. Means to say, when you're buying a property, you're not gambling, you're not looking to enter today and exit tomorrow. We are talking about a 3-year horizon, and there's never been an occurrence whereby the property price didn't recover after 3 years, and that is a very strong foundation basis for us to make a decision over here that the market will eventually recover. But there's one thing that is guaranteed, is that your TDSR will continue to drop, your affordability will continue to drop, and you will also risk having another cooling measure that may eventually spoil your plans because the down payment just continue to increase. Also, when we look at the transaction pricing going down, sometimes the increased number of OCR or even the EC launches that cause the average pricing to come down. Maybe in 2022 November, there were more RCR and CCR properties are being transacted at this point, which caused a higher average PSF as compared to today. So study the data, look into the project, because when you look at the project itself, it's very clear all the developers has already set their asking price, and land cost, construction cost and all these things already constitute to the break-even price. And if you follow the channel for long enough, you know that when the developers sell below their break-even price, the bank may not want to grant them their loan. So even though they come off maybe to a slow start, there'll be gradual acceptance on the pricing and the price will eventually move. For a buyer, what should you be doing? Or you have a seller selling a resale to go and buy a new launch property. There's a lot of opportunities out there because, as we know, developers are always out there to make a decent profit, and this is actually what happened in Whistler Grand during the launch itself, 160 units. Start of the launch, they didn't really do well. They slowly increased prices. Until the day they completed selling, they actually increased the price by more than 20%. Likewise, for Florence Residences, increased 20% over 2.5 years. Likewise, for Copper at Newton, 20% over. But now, right, you're able to go in and see Lentor Hills is almost 100%. But however, if you look at the price, it's still very, very close to the new launch pricing. Likewise, developer only maintain the pricing even though it's 97% sold already. And even for places like Hill Heaven and whatnot, right, it's moving very, very fast. However, developer never really increased price. And what's the difference? If we fall back to our property life cycle, there's always 4 stages: the new launch, post-launch, sub-sale, and then followed by the resale. If you purchase during the new launch, you would have been able to make some profit into the post-launch season. Why? Because developers will start to increase, as per what mentioned earlier on, 20%. So many times, right, before they even collect their keys, right, developer already stage up the pricing by 10 to 15%, which means in the past, if you buy a post-launch property, you would have to pay 15 to 20% higher than the person that bought during the new launch, which is quite difficult to swallow lah. In this current era, you're able to enter at the same price as the first owner that bought, which means that your $600,000 or $700,000 capital that you have yet to pump in has been inside T-bills and earning the interest, you would have put it into certain tech stocks and already make some money. However, the people that bought during day one launch still paid the same price. But I'm not saying that the people that bought during day one was silly. I'm just saying that if you have not bought, I think this is a golden opportunity because it only happens when the transaction volumes are low. So the silver lining over here is that you're looking to buy into the resale. Yes, you're going to be paying record price. However, if you're going into the new launch market, this window of opportunities, which these units at low PSF are already moving very, very fast, and the upcoming launches that I just mentioned to you. But disclaimer, I'm not saying that you buy any property new launch means you can make money. It still falls back to the fundamentals of this development and also the entry price that you are buying in on. If you need any comments or advice on the new launch that you are looking at, this is my number. Drop me a message. Happy to share more with you. And as usual, like, comment, subscribe, turn on notification bell because we post weekly real estate videos like this. With that, I hope you learned something today. Happy house hunting, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye.